Hi, and welcome everybody. Um, we're coming from New Democratic Dimensions, an organization of independent thinking Democrats, large and small d, dedicated to strengthening America through promoting public awareness, encouraging participation in the electoral and governmental process, and striving for the betterment of democracy. And we're so fortunate right now to have five, really, well, I guess six, me, seven with Oscar, of our board members who are going to have a major discussion, wonderful discussion on the future of New York City. And I want to thank right up front Oscar Torres. Oscar, show yourself, who's producing this and making it all possible. Thanks, Oscar. So the participants we have here is, and I'm going to quickly do it, retired Army Brigadier General, former New York City Commissioner of Veterans Affairs, Lori Sutton, wave. Um, President of the Greater New York Chamber of Commerce, Mark Jaffe. Former Assembly Member Darrell Towns, and now in the business world in a significant way. Former New York State Governor David Paterson, among so many other things. And the External Affairs Coordinator of CUSAC, Quality Services for Autistic Community, Pat Barrientos.
Morning.
So I'm going to turn it over to you, Pat. Just start it and go with it, and I'm dropping out.
Okay. Well, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning for which could be a very interesting conversation, given a side conversation, given that we are in the midst of a mayoral campaign, just weeks away from the primary, and we're all talking about what the future of New York City is going to look like, or should look like, in a post-pandemic new leadership starting January 1st. So I leave the floor to you, ladies and gentlemen, to kick it off. I guess we can start it off from the business perspective. Mark Jaffe, if you can kick us off.
Good morning, Pat, Governor, General, and Assemblyman. What a great group NDD is. We always often get together and discuss how to improve things. We've all been blessed in our work and family lives, and we're all there for one another. We are marching forward from a period that I've never seen in my 6 decades, a pandemic where we read about it, wearing masks, not going to work, being paid to stay home. The economy is humming along. We still are having discourse. How much do we pay people? Where can they live? What kind of medical do they need? These are all supporting factors for jobs, good jobs, and job creation. And in the Empire State, we've been a leader, leading the fight for 15, so people can work and pay rent. So this election is very important as we march in the street for economic justice, as we march in the street for safety and families. We also need to bring back jobs and businesses. We're here to talk today about the upcoming change in government here in New York, and what a panel. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Anybody want to jump in? Do you have a favorite? I know we've interviewed the top 5 candidates from A to Z, and Eric Adams took the lead today. That's exciting. What do you guys think? General?
Well, I'm watching this race very closely. I hope that your top 5 candidates included Catherine Garcia. She's making a real surge at this point, but it's exciting to see such qualified individuals coming from different walks of life and stepping up to lead our city forward in its time of need. So leadership really does count, and I'm excited about these next few weeks through the primary in June.
We did interview Catherine, and she got great marks, and we were looking forward to interviewing you, but I'm glad that you can join us on these important discussions on NDD.
It's a privilege. Thank you so much.
Darrell, do you have any?
Well, I think it's exciting times. We've survived this pandemic, and that has been awful. But what I think is going to really be interesting is the post-pandemic healing of the city. So not only do we have to deal with the post effects of the pandemic, but also there needs to be a healing in regard to unity. I'm very concerned about these stories of violence returning. Hate is on the rise, and not only do we need to bring our city together and move it forward, but we also need to do it united. And so, whoever becomes next mayor has to have a lot of tools, not only be a great manager, but also be someone who can bring communities together.
And I think that's a good segue to go to our next guest, Governor Patterson. Having run a state and actually really going through the ranks, being in the legislature and coming up through the ranks and becoming governor. Um, how what do you see as the future of this state, let alone the city? To see how we can come together. As Daryl has said, there's a lot of hate going on, and really New York has been very strong and very adamant that hate has no place in this state. So, Governor.
Well, I think that what's interesting, if this is new democratic dimensions, and if we're really talking about a different future of the state than what we have now, I have been disappointed, frankly, in just about all of the candidates. One of the reasons that Mr. Yang grabbed an early lead is that he wasn't afraid to give points of view about controversial issues. He talked about putting a casino on Governor's Island. He talked about speeding up the procurement process so businesses could get contracts quicker. Even then, when asked about the procurement process, he didn't really understand how it works. But the fact is that he was able to put himself out there. And I think that what's interesting in these, that you can campaign in poetry. You can campaign about your dream. Now, Scott Stringer did a very good campaign commercial about his dream about education as he's packing up his two kids to go to school that day. And that was the type of campaign that strikes at the heart of New Yorkers. So when you think about education, right now in our colleges, only 15% of people who graduate college are working in a field related to their college major. So one of the things we're going to have to start thinking about, and we're just not doing it, is accommodating the agencies of the city to the needs of the public. Only 12% of the families that live in Manhattan and 19% of the families that live around the entire city are a mother, father, son, and a daughter. They are step parents. They are single parent household heads. They are mixed families where different people who weren't even really in the family became part of the family. And our education system is still acting as if it was in the days when we watched Leave It to Beaver.
I think you're right, Governor, and we see Eric Adams, the Brooklyn Borough President, is getting more traction in the street by showing his new commercial, where he grew up, how he grew up as a New Yorker, how he suffered, and how he overcame it, and that's what we need to do. I heard the Assemblyman Towns. We agree with you at the Greater New York Chamber of Commerce. We need to be a city for all people. But we do need to figure out plans how to get back to work, Governor. And I look forward to working with you and your firm on that, because we need incentives. And I think Andrew Yang had a good idea with his basic universal income. I think it's time to end the unemployment boost. And if we pay somebody just an extra $1 a year to get them back to work, that's just a $2,000 bonus. I believe our agencies can do that. Daryl, you work with an agency. Lori, you work with all the vets and all the agencies. And Governor, I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
My thoughts on
improving the minimum wage and getting some government subsidies to help these small businesses that need to pay it to get people back to work.
Well, there are a number of people who've been advocating for a living wage for a period of time. And it might account for the fact that we are losing the number of jobs, much of it because of artificial intelligence. You can call a bank and talk to someone for a half an hour and you haven't actually spoken to a human being. So we are more and more removing jobs. The cost of that might be to create a living wage, because we will not have enough people to, we will not have enough jobs to accommodate the number of people who want to work.
I agree. We're going to be challenged because the federal government's pushing for a higher minimum wage, and we have the highest cost in the country. So, Daryl, I know you're well connected. What do you think about improving the minimum wage?
I mean, I think that everyone generally agrees with a person having a living wage. Someone who's working full time and still considered in poverty just is not the way that we should move forward. But I'm a little bit more concerned, even before we get to the issues. We're less than 2 months away from an election, and I don't feel the energy that you normally feel 2 months before an election.
Exactly.
And this is an election that also now has the complication of ranked choice voting. 8 years ago, the mayor was elected with only 4% of New Yorkers coming out to vote. And if we don't find some way to energize and wake up people, the next leader is not going to have a mandate because it's still going to be a small segment of the people who decide who the leader is. We need somebody who's going to energize, get people in, because one person is not going to settle the problems that we have going the next 4 years. It's going to be somebody who's got to energize communities to bring people together collectively so that we can talk about issues like a living wage, but also unity, bringing people together. And I'm very concerned.
Daryl, I just have to jump in here. I couldn't agree with you more. The issues are so important, and yet it's been so difficult to get the attention, the focus of New Yorkers when there's been so much else that's been roiling about us, as we all know. I think that this is a time that all of us, certainly all of us as leaders and decision makers, we have the opportunity to look this crisis straight dead in the eye and realize that if we can let go of the city we knew a year ago and look at new eyes, the city that's in front of us, there are opportunities that will come out of this that are just right within our grasp. And we've got to get the attention of New Yorkers, particularly the 3 out of 4 registered Democratic voters who have not shown up for local elections in the last few cycles, if ever.
Yep.
Well, that's, Lori, that's one of the mistakes that some of these candidates are making, is that they have not polled the constituency to find out who's actually going to be voting. They're only polling the constituency to see where they compare to their opponents. And whoever figures out where the greater number of votes is going to emanate and goes to that area will win the primary.
Well, you know, Governor, I think one of the reasons that Eric Adams has been, coming up in the rankings here is because he's been willing to talk about public safety with the focus and the attention and the clarity that the topic deserves. Because if we can't get that right, New Yorkers aren't going to come back. We can't get the jobs. We can't open up businesses, and that would be a needless tragedy.
Yeah, when you talk about unity, Daryl, and it's very important to hear all the voices and walk together. But Eric, I think, took a lead in the polls today because he's getting back to his roots. He's talking to people from the streets that feel that they've been slighted, and they're listening to him. Plus, he has that experience of working through the system. He was in the state legislature. He's a borough president, the 3rd largest city in America. And he's talking the talk. And I hope that after the June 22nd primary, whoever comes out on top will do what Lori and Daryl and of course the governor said. We need to come together and find out who's not only going to vote, but serve all our constituencies. And I think we'll see that after the primary, don't you? I hope that we will. I heard you, Lori, mention Kathy Garcia, and I think there's so much talent in the pool that whoever can bring it together after the June 22nd primary it has a great opportunity to run the greatest city in the world correctly.
Mark, I hosted a debate of 4 of the candidates last week, and I thought that Catherine Garcia answered the questions as they were asked better than any of the other candidates. What candidates do is you ask them a specific question about education, and then they give you their whole summary of what they think about education, which they've said every place they go, and is frankly too canned for a debate. And I think she did do that. Eric Adams is very unique. He's been on both sides. I mean, he was a law enforcement official. He was a law enforcement officer as well. And so he knows the dangers of trying to protect people. He would never be for defunding the police because after all, we're Democrats. We throw money at everything. When there's a problem, why would we defund it when we can put more money into training and also improving the relationship between police and the community they serve? But as Darrell pointed out, he didn't feel the spirit of a primary coming on. And I think that's because some of the candidates that have the ability to do so won't really say what they think about. And the reason that, say, for instance, Yang, he went to the police officer who was killed in the accident by the drunken driver. He went to that police officer's funeral. Now, that's very interesting. That's different for a Democrat to do like that. I wished I had done it, because when I became governor and I would go to police officers' funerals, I think I was seen as an outsider because I hadn't done it before. If I could have done it again, I would have. And that does not diminish from the fact that I've been extremely critical of departmental policy and some issues involving the police over the last 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, we really need to get to the root cause of the training and put more money into our safety. And the acronym defunding the police, I don't know if it's a unifying word. I think we need to get different departments all working together. A department, serving the homeless population, a department serving the domestic and the psychiatric population to make a better, safer city, while we as civic and business leaders can improve the job market with training. There's a lot of federal money, and we have to get these potential leaders to start having more serious dialogue like we do at NDD.
Mark, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we have to, in addressing this public safety issue, recognize that for far too long, the burden's been on the shoulders of the police. And yes, there's lots of work to be done there, but public safety, I mean, that involves Department of Education and Transportation and FD and Corrections. Yep. And I mean, it's a whole group of agencies working with the private sector in partnership and communities to recognize that we all have a stake in public safety.
Yeah, we go to the airports, we travel. It's so important, and we do need that training, and we do need to unify, and we have to keep talking about it because as thought leaders, we need our elected officials to hear this. And so lucky to have the experience here with the general that truly understands how to keep people safe globally, and of course, I'm sure you studied it here. And I know, Governor, you did a great job with all the resources you had, and Darrell. The state assembly funds it all, with the senators. So it's such a privilege to understand that we're so close to improving the system, and this election is important. And I hope everybody who's listening, will ask questions, because there are more debates coming, and we need more honest and, as the governor said, real answers, not just canned pitches that can vary as the polls, go up and down.
Amen. Patricio, I'm really interested in your perspective. What do you think about all this?
I was thinking of the next question to pose, and I think I'll do it here, but giving my thoughts. we've just come out of a 4-year roller coaster ride that none of us wanted, none of us thought was going to happen. Then you throw a pandemic into it. There is a lack of trust in leadership, a lot of misinformation, which I think plays into what Daryl was saying, that the energy of a mayoral election in New York City is not there anymore. It's because I think we're exhausted. And that's unfortunate. But the message needs to be that, if you don't go out and vote, look at what happened with the census. 89 people. That was the difference between keeping a congressional seat and losing one. And we lost one because of 89 people. And if this isn't an example of what the microcosm of an election cycle, of what happens in an election, I don't know what is, and I don't know what will be, what the future holds for us in terms of now losing. This is the second census now that we've lost a congressional seat. Now it becomes a battle of upstate, downstate. Where does that come? Where will that seat come from? Trust. We need to bring trust back. But more than anything, in our other conversations we've had leading up to today, respect is another thing that needs to come back. We don't respect not just ourselves, but we don't respect one another. And I think that is the job, I think, for the next leader of our great city is to unify a city, but bring back respect, trust, and I don't. That's a hard thing to do, all at the same. Usually one thing or another, but how do we do it? How do we do it as a city? And to say that one person is going to have that responsibility, I don't think is realistic. I think that we all have to play a role in that as we move forward in a post-pandemic New York City.
Yeah, that's a great question that you posed, and it's really a conundrum, right? So, as a New York City resident, as a New York State resident, us losing a congressional seat lessens our power in one way, but the place where that seat is going is probably in Georgia, Florida, or Texas, where it will produce another Democratic member, which then can help New York City. So it's really crazy the times that we're living in. I think that because of the loss in the last census, the growth in Georgia is what sent 2 Democratic senators to Washington, who are now represent Georgia, but they represent the interests of democratic thinking people. So it's interesting how the political interplay is these days. So yes, it hurts, but in a funny way, in the long term, it could be a benefit.
I think we need to clone Stacey Abrams. What do you think, Daryl?
Yes, I kind of like that. And especially the way that she, and you'll appreciate this, General, she was able to develop a plan to move her troops, so to speak, and really get to positive result. And she did it very effectively. It didn't take a ton of money, but it was her understanding of her state and knowing how to do those precision strikes in order to make it count. And she did a tremendous job. And I think that she understands that she has more work to do. And maybe what we should do is try to help her create the Stacey University so that we can kind of begin to train folks, and then we can just spread them out wherever we need them. Because she's going to be busy. She's going to be busy being governor of Georgia, I think.
There you go.
So I just got the sign from Oscar, and I'm coming back on. I'm Howard Teach founder and co-chair of New Democratic Dimensions. Tom Acosta, my co-chair, is not here with us today, but we want to thank each and all of you, both for this incredible 20-minute session of learning about New York City, looking forward to hearing more, and most importantly, being part of the New Democratic Dimensions board. We hope to have more discussions, and I think the issue of enthusiasm in the elections and more people paying attention and get the candidates to start being more vocal about what they believe, what they think, and that they can make a difference in these next weeks ahead is really important. And I thank all of you for taking the time to be here and record this.